Hello, welcome to another edition of Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you like the video when you're done, please hit the like button. That helps out a lot. 3,450 viewers, I think we're at right now. And in a week, it's like been over the growth of 1,000 subscribers. Man, I can't say it enough how much I really appreciate it. To your new subscribers that came on like Friday, Thursday, or whatever, was gonna post one over the week. Actually did two over the weekend and did not like them. Did this one, the one I'm gonna do right now, had to change it for several reasons, and the other one just fell too flat. Now, there will be a video posted every day this week, if not more. I've been saying this, I just haven't been able to get on track for a bunch of reasons. But I will, and I need to really start. Somebody in the comment section said that I needed to start treating this like a job. And you know what? You're right about that. I didn't expect this kind of growth. Was really looking at, a year or so out to get like near 10,000. And I believed that I could, just based on the fact when I started Convicting the website back in 2008 or 9 or whatever it was, I got like 50,000 viewers, whatever it was, unique views, I think it was called, after, so many weeks or months. It was pretty quick. So I figured, I can get to like 10, I think, someday. And somebody had told me that has a YouTube channel that like 10,000 pays $2,000 a month. So in my head, I'm like, wow, that would just pay like our bills here. And that's where I was wanting to go. So yeah, I do need to treat this more like a job. Absolutely. 100% correct in a lot of different ways. Comments, I breezed through half of them and then something like that. I said last week I was going to pick a time. I believe one of the videos that were posted, I said that. It could have been one that I deleted. I have to. I don't. I'll be on track soon. Just from personal things that have gone on. It's about time to get things started. More than a month behind. Okay, death. It's part of life. What sucks is when somebody's life's cut too short, and especially sucks when it's because of drugs. And this is a story about somebody's life that was cut way too short because of an overdose. In 2007, I was in FMC, Butner, the Federal Medical Center in Butner, North Carolina, for cancer treatment. I have recurring bladder cancer, and I was there. At the time, I'd already had cancer like 4 or 5 years, but it kept reoccurring, and they tried to send me to the hospital for, actually, I should have never probably been to the hospital because they don't have the right treatment for that. I can do that in a doctor's office. Anyway, while I was there, I hung out a lot with mainly Greg De Palma, the Italian guys. That was pretty much what I did during the days. And there was also a guy that used to come around until Greg would run him off, and his name was Grady. Grady was from a small town outside of Atlanta. Think it was his second or third prison sentence. He was there for marijuana. Not sure if a gun was involved. I want to say it might have been a firearm involved. But I will say that there were people that found him suspicious. He was one of the guys, and I got this in my comment section, that said he had a good attorney. Now, I have said before, when people say they had a good attorney and they don't have a bunch of time in the feds, like, under 10, especially if you had a firearm with an enhancement and you get 3, you usually got to be careful. Or if you're a repeat offender, such as Grady, but I never saw his paperwork, and you only have 5 or less, and you say you had a good attorney, it's usually a flag. Anyway, we kind of make jokes about that in the feds a lot. So Grady was the type of guy, he was there, I think his leg had a MRSA infection or something, or how do you say it, MRSA infection in it. It was from a previous car accident. I believe he'd fell asleep at the wheel, and his leg was actually bent like this. I mean, it was crazy. They had to take a chunk of the bone out. But he could walk, but he was primarily in a wheelchair. Probably mid-40s, I'm going to say he was. Stout guy, and he had, the thing about Grady that was really annoying was his voice. Yeah, talk like this, you talk like that. Or like Spanky from the Little Rascals, if anybody remembers that. A lot like that. And it really, his voice like pierced through you. And he was just a super, super friendly guy. He spent from the time he got up to the time he went to bed, just going from cell to cell to cell to cell, conversing, talking. And people, get away from me, I don't want to talk to you. And he just laughed. He was higher than a kite. He had a fentanyl patch. He was doing well. I mean, that's what most people at FMC were on. Dope, you know. Back in the day, I don't know how it is right now. I heard they're going through a morphine thing. You give everybody morphine. It was all about opiates, oxy, perks, fentanyl patches. That's what it was all about. And you can get on it from the moment you walked in, and most people did. All you got to do is say your pain level is over 6. Voila, you start off on perks, then you go up from there. Grady was on a patch when I met him. I wasn't by no means close with them there, and I used to laugh when Greg DePalma would run Grady off after he was around us for so long. Thought it was because Greg did it in a way, and Grady would just laugh at him, you know, get out of here, I don't want to hear it, get out, go. So Greg would say, and Grady would and wheel off. He also had this long mullet, which didn't really fit the way he looked. That was a little strange, but all in all, he was a friendly guy. 2008, I'm at Butner FMC. I'm sorry, FCI 1. The unit I was in was Georgia Tech, and as I've said in previous videos, the person I was with the most at Butner FCI 1 was Carmine Persico. Carmine, I have mentioned before, and so have many other channels, had a table in the unit. The TV was locked down. Pretty much Carmine had control of that. And we were sitting there one day at our table, Carmine's table, whatever you want to say. It was our table back then. And here comes Grady Manus. That's what his last name was, Manus. Kind of was going to save that, but. So Grady comes up and Carmine goes, oh, not him, not this guy, oh, this guy. So here comes Grady, laughing, and I couldn't help but smile every time I see him, for real. So here he comes, rolling in on his wheelchair, and they put him here, and he's not got that much time, and blah, blah, blah. And Carmine said, you know, do you like this guy, Robert? And I said, he doesn't bother me that much. It's the voice. And Carmine said, a voice. Oh, you can't be around us all the time because of that voice. And I said, yeah, I know. Well, Carmine eventually, after some weeks, told Grady that he's welcome to come over and talk for just a little while, but then he has to go. And he couldn't sit too close to the TV because he liked to talk to people, and that annoyed Carmine. And Grady did so. Every morning he'd roll out of bed. Normally he'd make some coffee, and he'd roll on over to the table, and he'd read newspapers there with Carmine. And they would both read in silence. I used to go out in the yard every morning till 11 or whatever, but that's what Grady did in the mornings. He hung out with Carmine, and he wheeled over to Carmine's table, and he would read while Carmine was reading a paper, and talk to him when spoken to only, when Carmine spoke to him. The elections happened with Obama and Hillary and eventually McCain, and Grady was one that just couldn't stand Obama. And even though he associated with a lot of blacks, you know, on the other side, you know, he'd talk his shit, but this is why. He did have his reasons, and this is what it came from. When he was a kid, he said, and he had the scars to prove, he said that he was playing ball in the park with 3 little black kids. And at first they were like his friends, and then it was his ball. I think they stole his ball, and he went to go get it. Whatever happened, they tied him up to a tree. He said that they held him down, and they tied it and left him. I'm talking for hours. He was in the tree for hours, hanging, screaming off the top of his lungs. And he had these deep, like rope burn marks in his arms, where it was consistent with what the story he was telling. So, he definitely didn't want to see a first black president. That's put it in mild. Also, when Grady first arrived at the FCI with us, he'd just been cut off medication or weaned himself off medication, he says, But over a period of time, he was there about a month, his leg was in pain and he had to get back on him. First it was, I think they even started him at Tylenol 3, then perks, then eventually up to a patch. Now, the cousin of Grady Manus was Keith Brookin. If nobody knows who that is, Keith was a linebacker. I think he was like an all-star linebacker, but he played for the Atlanta Falcons, Dallas Cowboys, and then I believe he retired in Denver. And I just looked something up right now before I push go. He's teaching like a little league team or something near his hometown in Atlanta. Although he wasn't able to talk to Keith like much, or didn't talk to much, he talked to Keith's father often. And, you know, there were occasions when he talked to Keith. He was very proud to be Keith's cousin. He gloated on his cousin, talked nonstop about his cousin. And that's cool. I mean, you know, that's his family. That's his first cousin who's an NFL star. That's a pretty big deal. He also had a little boy, a son that was like 5, and a daughter named April who was 20. I hesitated before I said her name, but yeah, April. April was going through some problems, drugs, boys. I believe she was 20. And for several days, you know, he was really ranting and raving about his daughter's behavior. I think she moved in with his mother, some money issues or whatever. And he would preach to her about, you know, that she needed to clean up her life and not get clean. And one day I was walking by the phone and I heard him say, you know, I haven't done drugs and da-da-da-da. And he was talking to Keith's dad, Keith Brookin's dad, his uncle, Grady's uncle. And, you know, saying that he hadn't done drugs and he's been clean. And I think the uncle from the other line, and he's in the phone booth right by me, the wheelchair phone booth, which was by here. And I can even hear the uncle talking, to be honest. And after we got off, I said, damn, I said, Grady, you're not totally clean. You know, no. And he said, well, I'm on prescription pills or a patch prescribed by the doctor. And that, and my uncle knows me from doing cocaine and this and that, and whatever drugs he was doing on the street. And I understood his reasoning. And then came a day that they took his fentanyl patch for whatever reason. Now, I remember in the morning, they took his patch. Or, I'm sorry, it was at 7:30, pill call, they took his patch. The next day, he got up, and for whatever reason, they wouldn't give him his patch. When he came back to the unit, I remember he got into it with his daughter, telling her she got to stop doing drugs, blah, blah, blah. There was a big thing about drugs, alcohol. And later that day, Grady came to me and he asked me if I knew one of the store guys in the unit. Black guy from Virginia, Baltimore, Virginia or Washington, D.C., and there were several. And I said, yeah, and he said, why? And he said, because he has some heroin and I want some. And I said, go ask him. He said, no, he don't like me. And there was people that hated Grady just because of the way he talked. Really, that's how annoying his voice could be. And I knew the guy. And I said, look, at the time I was really clean. And I mean, so it was like, this would be the end, later months of 2008. I'd been clean since October the 13th, 2007. And what I mean by clean, it wasn't just using. I drank a couple times. I mentioned that in a different video. It wasn't just using drugs. Like I didn't want to, like I like possessing them. That was like out of the question too. And I really didn't want to I didn't even want to go get them. I wouldn't, you know, like I was so clean at the time, like going to get drugs for somebody else, like I wasn't down for it. I did find out that it wasn't, it was somebody close to the guy that had the dope. And again, some time passed and Grady asked me and I flat out told him no. And I said, you know, why don't you go ask one of these guys, bing, 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 bing. And it just so happened that it was a short period of time later that the guy had distributed the drugs and people had it for sale. And there was a guy that was walking around the unit asking guys if they wanted to, you know, to buy any dope. He ran into Grady, and sure enough, Grady bought some dope. Now, let me tell you something. Did a lot of heroin in prison. And who was ever putting out these papers of dope had no clue what they were doing. It was a $50 paper, $50 worth of commissary, and I saw it. And it was worth, it was probably 2 points or just as short of a quarter gram. And that's a lot of drugs for a $50 paper in prison. Trust me when I'm saying that. And I was there in the cell when Grady did his first line. And I'll never forget, the line he made was big. And he looked up and he goes, "Is this too much?" And I go, "I wouldn't do that much." If I said, "When's the last time you done heroin?" He says, "I haven't." I said, you haven't? I said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Man, that can kill you 3 times right there." He's like, "Oh no, I got a high tolerance because of the fentanyl." This. I said, "All right, I'm telling you, that's too much." He snorted it. I saw him half hour, 45 minutes later, and he was feeling good. His face was red, and he was just rah. His big smile. "This is great." I see him go into the room, walk over there, and I can see from where I'm sitting, he was snorting it. He hit another one. And I just like, okay, you know, there's such thing as too much. It's like when you're eating some really good food, which I have. Well, that's not the best of food I've been eating. When you eat food that tastes good, like crap, chocolate cake or something, you can't stop, then you feel like shit. Same thing when you're doing drugs. You can do too much and feel not good. Well, on that second one, I can see that kind of got him. And about 8:30 that night, I walked over to the room, and it was Grady and his cellie. His cellie had been drinking some wine that night in the chow hall in the kitchen. And I think he did, I think he did a little bit of dope. And I looked down, and Grady was just about to snort again. And I said, "Grady, listen to me, man. You don't want to do that. You're too fucked up now." He started okay, whiff, and he does it. And still got stuff left. And I look, and I just thought to his cellie, "Man, this is not good." And sure enough, they call count time. Count time comes, it's a bed book count. That means each person has to be up on their feet. They've got to do it. I immediately ran over to that cell after everybody was already locked in their cell because I didn't see them. And both of them were wiped out in their bunks. Grady's passed out, and the cellie's passed out from drinking. Don't know what kind of dope we did. I get him up. I shake him awake. Get him up. I said, "Man, get up." Bam. I hit him on the side of the head. He stands up. I mean, he sits up and he goes, "Oh, thanks, man." He was in the last cell in the unit. So officers got to do bed book count. They got to come around, right? It doesn't matter if it's a shakedown or what it is. When an officer or officers start at the front of the unit and make their way around, they get a little lazy by the end. They get tired of doing whatever it is they're doing. And this time was no different. They were doing a bed book count. Everybody had to stand up. They did a circle, and at the last cell, when they went to Grady and his cellies, those two didn't stand up. They couldn't stand up. They were incapable of standing up because they were so fucked up. Yet, the cops looked, kind of like, fuck it, we're not gonna mess with it, and went on. Somebody shut the door. I mean, when everybody came out, a few minutes later, when counts cleared, somebody shut their door, and that was the end of that. I think I was writing an article or something that night. So when I used to sit at the table outside, it was in front of my cell. Well, I just kicked this. It was in front of my cell, excuse me. The table that Carmine and I sat at, Carmine's table, if you will. So I would sit there while Carmine's watching TV or whatever, and I would just, sit there and write a lot of times, not watch TV. Matter of fact, most of the time when I was at that table, I was either reading a paper or somewhere else or talking, but, I watched only so much of that TV, even when I was sitting out there. Went to bed. Now, I used to get the USA Today newspaper, and when you get a paper in prison and other guys don't, they want to get in line. They want to read it. Hey, can I have the sports section? That's huge. Can I have this, next? Well, I gave Grady my paper. He was always the next in line. And because he followed sports, was really following his cousin, because he followed sports, he wanted my sports page, offered me money for it, everything. So a lot of times I'd give him the paper before I even read it, and sometimes go back the next day and get it. This is one of those occasions. So after I got the paper during mail call, I didn't even bring it to my room. I gave it to Grady and then went on. The next morning I get up. We didn't have yard, I think, because, wait a minute, do we? I think there was no yard because the sex offenders had the yard that morning. That prison has a civil, the FCI one has a civil commitment unit. That is guys that have already been done with their time, but they're civilly committed, held, not criminally, but civilly, because they're deemed dangerous or sexual predators. It's a sex program up there, and they're kept separate from the rest of the yard. So on some mornings, they would not let general population in the yards, and the sex offenders got it. And I believe that was one of these mornings. For whatever reason, I walked over to Grady's cell. I peeked in. I didn't even think about the day before. Saw my paper at the foot of his bed. I knocked. You know, first of all, I walked up. I just walked up, immediately knocked, looked in. I can see he's still laying down. Grady used to get up like 7:30, 8:30. So he got up a little late sometimes. And he'd always say, just come in my cell and get it. I didn't like to walk in people's cell. It's just a bad habit for me. A bad habit that I think people do in prison. You should always knock, be respectful. And in these days, people don't always do that anymore. But anyway, well, the second time I went over there, I'm like, fuck it, I wanted to read the paper. So I did open the door. I walked in. I go grab the paper and I look. Boom. In prison, there's a code, if you will, amongst people that use drugs. And that is, if you ever overdose, don't go get the cops. If you go get the cops, you're considered a snitch. And if you're in a if you were in a USP especially, and you went and got a cop, if I'm shooting dope with the chair over here, and this chair overdoses right in front of me, I can't go get the cop, because then I'm labeled as a snitch in prison. And that's not a good thing, especially in the USP. At this prison, to be honest, I don't think people would have cared. But when I looked over, I saw Grady, and what I saw was somebody, it was too late now. When I say too late. He was blue. He was blue right here. He had a white foam on his mouth where he vomited. You know, he was laying down like this. He was a fat guy, actually, okay? A little short fat guy, if you really want to get, because he fit in that bunk. Oh, damn. I'm sorry, it's the work phone. Oof. So, my bad. Again, so there was breath coming out of him. And I was in that cell for probably contemplating to go get staff for maybe at the longest 2 minutes, but that probably not that long. But what I decided to do, I did not go get staff. There was a third guy who got the paper, somebody who got the paper behind Grady, and he was a Hispanic guy. Also the guy that sold Grady the dope, I believe. I don't know. You know what? Honestly, I don't know that. I went to this guy and I said, hey, so-and-so, you got that paper? Grady was supposed to give it to you last night. I told him to go and give it to you. Oh, really? I said, yeah. I said, man, he's in bed. Go ahead, just go in there. And I said, man, kick the bunk and wake him up. He's like, yeah? And yeah, wake his ass up. The guy walked over. He went in. He used to fuck with Grady a lot. I mean, they used to play, grab the paper, look, and scream, ah! officer, CO, and comes just running out of the cell. So the cop that was working that day didn't run. He walked. Strolled over there, looked down, got on the thing, hit it. Some staff came running. Medical, not so fast. Now, they all came in. Cops came in. Medical wasn't there yet. And the cops looked. They looked down. And they're like, oh, this guy's gone. They left. They leave. When they left, I actually walked back in the cell. And I got to look down. And looked at him, you know. It's a weird, weird, weird feeling. It was really a strange feeling. And then something crossed my mind. And you know, I think death, so I've been around another overdose. But I just realized something as I'm sitting here telling the story. I think death does something to me. It makes me think about things that I usually wouldn't. So in this case, and I was just referring to my dad because since my dad died, some shit's come out of me that I never, you know, it's kind of tripped me out. So on the same note, I looked down at Grady, and I'm going to tell you what my first thoughts were. I realized in my opinion, right then and there, it was like drugs are not a nonviolent offense. That was like the first thing that they're not a nonviolent offense. Now I know I can get pushed back on that or whatever. I don't care. That was my thoughts. Nobody can change them, and it's over. And I remembered him talking to his daughter the night before. And I remembered how much he talked about his little boy. And for all his faults, he loved those kids. And he was definitely concerned about his daughter, April. And I wish you know that. And I did write something. I wrote a piece on it back in the day. I think I titled like NFL football players. Grady Manus dies because otherwise nobody would have cared. If not related to some NFL player. And I had to, you know, be mindful of the facts when I was writing because it was just new, you know, and I'm not trying to, I don't want nobody to get cased up or put something out there, you know what I mean? And I'm in prison still. It's different now. There's a lot of people that knew. Matter of fact, what was crazy about the Manus case was typically, when somebody overdoses in prison, they do like an investigation. Sometimes shut it down. But staff immediately comes out and they start investigating. In this case, they locked his cellie up per protocol. That's what you do if your cellie dies. For any reason, you go to the hole. Make sure you didn't kill him. I guess that's what their reasoning is. Cellie went to the hole for like 2 days and came out. You know, not one person got questioned. Not one. Really, really, really bizarre. Not a question. And they locked his door. And they did not open that cell for months. Months. I mean, it stayed there for, man, I want to say more than 4. And then, like, the cops went in. And then they looked through his property. And there was dope in there. There was dope on the table in there. I know that for a fact. Just that. You know, I didn't go tell nobody, hey, there's heroin in there if you want to go grab it. And I wasn't using at the time. Or I would have went in there for sure. I would have found a way to go grab it. Believe me, I would have. Especially if it killed somebody, man. You know, if a lot of people don't know, if somebody overdoses in prison, man, everybody's trying to find that dope. I think I've never used heroin or a needle on the street to this day. So I've never seen heroin on the street to this day. So I would imagine it's the same. Oh man, shit, that must be good shit. I'll just do less. That's the thinking. And for sure, if I was on it, oh yeah, I would have got it. I'd have broke the window because there was a little, something, trust me. But I was off by that time. Anyway, that's a story of a guy, Keith Brooken's cousin, named Grady Manus. If people know him and he was like a rat or a snitch, whatever, I don't care. Whatever. I think he deserved a story. I think so. I really do. And yeah. Hope someday prison in the United States changes, I hope someday there's a system where drugs aren't so plentiful or loud and people can overdose accidentally or otherwise.